Hi guys, welcome to the call today. It's a fairly easy topic. The topic is, if all things are arbitrary, why are we so stressed? And it is an easy topic, but it's not necessarily easy to recognize it in our own daily lives. And this is why being aware when we feel stressed becomes critical and important to the process of change. So I'm going about my day and I start going faster and faster because I look at the time and I realize, oh, you know what? I only have 30 minutes more, and then I have to get on, say, a call. And I need to get these other two things done before that call. And I start pressuring myself, and I start feeling uncomfortable, and I start rushing. And we find that we do this kind of thing all day, every day, for multiple reasons. And I was lucky enough when I was a teenager. We were traveling across country, and we stopped in a restaurant. And this moment that I'm going to share literally changed my life and the way I looked at stress. I was very used to people living with stress and performing under stress. And you know, their bodies are tighter, they're stiffer when they're performing this way. They can be curt, and they appear to be less lovely because the stress is interfering with their ability to communicate their loveliness through their body language. And we're at this restaurant, and I notice all the waiters and waitresses are rushing over because it's a really busy truck stop with lots of people. And it happens to be the regular dinner hour, 5 o'clock. And then our waitress comes over, and she's so mellow, and she's so sweet, and congenial, and she just helps us so quick and so in such a loving manner. And I would watch her as she walked as compared to the other people that were walking, and she had no stiffness. She was very fluid, and she was actually faster. Even though she was very fluid and mellow, she was faster than everyone else who was stiff and rigid and trying to get through things faster. And it was such a contrast for me to see that somebody could move without stress and actually get more done than when others moved with stress. Because I had been raised, oh, hurry, rush, you're going to be good, you're going to get this done. And I even asked my dad about it. And my dad was raised in the military, and he had a lot of background in psychology and identifying people. And he actually asked her to stop and talk with us. And she shared that, she felt very blessed to be in her life. And she loved everybody from a good place, and it made it really easy for her to be of service through grace and kindness. And that stuck with me. To be of service through grace and kindness was just this heartfelt, loving thing. And I thought, yeah, I want to be that. I don't want to be stressed. I want to be that instead. So I looked at the idea that the way we treat ourselves, with how we stress ourselves, actually makes life harder and not easier. If all things are arbitrary, then why are we stressed? So the lady in the restaurant chose to see things with love and kindness, and therefore she was fluid. People that felt like there was a problem were more rigid and tight. It can be that when we are feeling stressed, we're actually the ones creating the largest part of our problem. By relaxing, slowing down, looking at how we're treating ourselves, we can see things differently. For instance, a daily schedule. I'm very fortunate that I'm self-employed and that I set my own schedule every day. But like today, I have call after call after call. And I have to make sure that when I set my schedule, because it is arbitrary, that I set something that meets my needs. For me, when I set a schedule, I feel myself versus just looking at a calendar. I feel my connection to who I am and to what my day is going to look like. And I can normally feel very easily whether the day will have occurrences that will take me out of the moment and into something else, or whether the day will be fluid and easy in a way that I can pack my day tight. So like today, I've packed it tight because it's a very easy day. Another thing is, because schedules are arbitrary, when we do something like this and something does change, we need to remember that we have the right to speak up and share that something has changed. For instance, if I came into a place where something came up with my kids and I say, well, I've got 4 more appointments back to back, but I need this time for my kids. I prioritize my kids at the top of the list. They are very important to me. Clients are very important as well, But if my child needs something, and it's not just a want, it's an actual need, especially if it's a desperation, then I have the right to inform people that I'm changing my mind. We often move to fear, and we worry about confrontation. We worry about letting people down. We worry about changing things, and we become rigid. What I also realize is that when I am fluid and I am willing to change, that if something comes up for me and I communicate that to someone else, it normally matches their need as well. Perhaps I make a lunch date at 2 o'clock, and I realize, you know what, I'm going to need 20 more minutes in order to have this nice, easy schedule that I like to have. Or I could push myself a little faster, and I could meet the 2 o'clock time. Now, I can call up my friend and say, hey, how's 20 more minutes? Does that sound good to you? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, perfect. I was thinking I needed a little more time, too. When it feels like too much pressure to rush, I'm normally feeling more than just myself. And again, I'm relaxing into my energy. I'm feeling my world around me. I'm not just using my brain and saying, keep the schedule. When you can remain fluid, then synchronicity works in your favor. That's why if I call up my friend, they're likely having an issue as well, or they're likely meeting the time as well. Otherwise, I would have felt more fluid towards going a little faster versus feeling resistance to going faster. I'm not saying that everybody is in a place where they're ready for this kind of behavior, but it is something definitely to look at and work towards. And if you don't know to look at it, then you won't even know how to begin. With the stress, it is self-imposed, and we have to start to look at where does that come from. For me, the stress was my parents. My mother was overwhelmed all through my childhood. My dad was out to sea. She was working a full-time job, and there were 4 of us at home. Part of the reason she was overwhelmed is because she had this amazing partner in her life, and he was gone. And that sense of loss created this uncomfortableness. Instead of slowing down and being okay, she just kept pushing forward, carrying this uncomfortableness. That, again, creates stress. Stress is not an external thing that pushes you. Stress is a drag of your energy inside of your physical form. What you'll see in a body when you're looking at somebody becomes very obvious, and most of us probably are already aware of this, but let's break it down a little more. When you look at somebody who is stiff, their muscles are tense, they're rigid, they're not relaxed. Okay, we know almost always right away that, there's something going on with this person, and we become more observant. Without us thinking about it, our eyes, when we catch something like that, it takes us into a low-level fight or flight. It's a very tiny, low little level, and what it does is it stops our synchronicity with our minds. It slows it down. It can even, can stop it completely if we're not careful. You'll also notice that when you connect to somebody else who is stressed, that your eyes then start to pick up even more detail. And this is another way you know that you've gone into fight or flight at a very low level. Visual acuity changes. So something you might not have noticed before, you're suddenly very aware, and you're suddenly paying more and more attention to somebody's body language. Now, why does this matter? Because once you enter fight or flight yourself, you're in the same process. You're now creating stress in your physical form, and you're carrying stress. Part of this is done because we're mirroring. We tend to mirror somebody else's body language. We tend to mirror somebody else's needs. And it's a very common form of communication so that we make others feel welcomed and cared for. Now, when somebody who is stressed and uncomfortable comes into our space and we start mirroring them, then we're actually at the same level of stress and discomfort as them. This is arbitrary. Again, this is not something that's required. In that moment, the thing that we can do is we can slow down. We can realize this has happened. I've just entered this space with this person. I wasn't there before. I'm going to go ahead and pull back out of that. I'm going to balance my system. I'm going to relax. Progressive muscle relaxation, diaphragmatic breath, just a little bit to pull me back into my body. Because part of you, when you enter fight or flight, part of you goes up and out of the head. That's the part of the mind connection. It then is out of the body versus in the body. The third eye then separates. And this is part of the reason for the visual acuity. You start to notice small, tiny, micro inflections in people. You may not know what they mean, but it's something that starts to catch your attention. And again, you start paying more and more attention. The brain is working stronger, faster, harder to make sure that this physical form that we're in will be okay. We back up again, we slow down, we relax, we get our mind and our brain connected again, we get our fluid feeling back, we are now graceful again. We then can mirror that for the other person. In that moment, they have the opportunity to do the same thing, to slow down, realize that the stress they're creating is unnecessary. We give them some verbal cues as well, but we don't always have to. A lot of times, just our behavior can bring somebody to a better place. I notice this happens a lot in doctor's offices. I used to have to go to a lot of doctor's appointments because I was unwell, and then after that, I was taking other people to doctor's appointments to go with them to their doctors and talk to them about things. And I would notice in a doctor's office that if somebody who was relaxed and in a good space walked into the room, that the tense, uncomfortable feeling of the room would then dissipate and everybody would move into this more relaxed space. So people are looking for that. They want that connection. They don't want to carry stress. Stress is the unnatural state. With these things in mind, let's go back to the schedule idea again, that a schedule is arbitrary. So when you're scheduling your day, my suggestion, if you are capable of this, is to not have more than 4 hours of a tight schedule. So for instance, if you have the freedom to create a schedule like this, I could schedule 4 hours of work in a day, and the rest of my day should remain open. And why is this? Because synchronicity occurs most fluid when we are open and fluid. So if I schedule more than 4 hours of appointments in one day, then I'm starting to block my ability to be synchronistic. Now, everyone that works a regular job, that works 8 hours a day, looks at me and says, "You're absolutely crazy. There's no way I can do that." Aha, I have a solution for you. Those of you who have a scheduled 8-hour-a-day workspace can call synchronicity to those experiences. So again, remaining open and fluid. You know you have to be at the office, but it doesn't dictate necessarily the way you experience the office. So it becomes important again to realize that you're not a victim. You have a job because you want the job. It meets your needs in your life. And in doing so, you can embrace it. You can be fluid. You can be open. And in doing so, you can be in a place. You can be occupied by a schedule. And you can still be this open, fluid space that I'm talking about. And you will draw experiences to you during your work time that you would normally have to do outside of work time. A lot of people go to the grocery store, they run into people there. They go to social gatherings, they run into people there. But nowadays, with an 8-hour work schedule, it's easier to draw an experience to your workspace than it is to go looking for it outside of the workspace. If you're holding this arbitrary stress of, I have to be here, then you're in the way and you're going to be in low-level fight or flight the entire time you're at work. You're going to be more tired when you leave work. You're not going to have support in your life that you're looking to have. And there's going to be a level of discomfort throughout the day. We're calling this a level of fight or flight because it's a change in the body system. The balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic will be off. And when you do that, the rate of exchange of the blood through the system is different. The rate of exchange through the breath in your system is different. The majority of people feel stressed because they reduce their breath. This is why, again, we say whenever you start to feel stressed, one of the very first things to do is slow down, change your breath, relax your body. The next thing that you're going to notice is part of our arbitrary stress is when we're around others, we're not our true selves. We're hiding parts of ourselves. And that's another way that we create stress in the physical form. So something inside of me that would have flowed fluidly out is now being held rigidly in. A lot of people challenge me on this one, and they say, but I can't be this way at work. My challenge to you is, if you can't be yourself at work, then it might be time to start changing what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, where you're doing it. I mean, the list goes on and on. Anyone that has ever really taken the time to work on this one has found a solution. I haven't worked with a single person that said, there's no way I can get out of this, and it not happen. I know it's a challenge. I know it doesn't feel easy. But I also know that if you are moving synchronistically in your life, you will draw to you the ability to move into change. The reason we're not changing is because we're rigid. We're rigid because we're under stress. We're in low-level fight or flight all day long. Another thing that helps with this is just think about how you wake up in the morning. Are you waking up happy? If you're not waking up happy, then you probably didn't go to bed happy either. If you're not going to bed happy, then you're not taking care of yourself. When I did work an 8 hours a day job, and I had 6 kids at home, and I was PTA president, and do this and that, I mean, a big pile of work, I had to stop and look at it and say, okay, what is it I'm doing to myself? Is this the life I actually want to live? How am I mistreating myself that makes this harder? So I would go to bed thinking of the pile of work that I had to do the next day, and I would feel overwhelmed because there was no chance I was going to get done with everything that people would hand me to do. So we go back to, again, a schedule is arbitrary. I started spreading out the amount of work that I could do. I still worked an 8-hour job. I still had all the kids. I still was PTA president. But I started taking something that needed to be done for the PTA that I thought I was going to do in a week, and I started spreading it out over 3 weeks. My schedule's arbitrary. I made it. I'm the one doing the planning. Why not? I started looking with the kids. Okay, well, this is the number of chores we're normally doing in a day. And I started saying, you know what? We're going to skip this chore this day. We're going to spend this time doing something fun together. We have to create a life that meets our needs. If you go home and you're not having any fun, then you have to make changes. If you go to work and you're not having any fun, you have to make changes. Paying attention to the fact that we're not having any fun is all about us. No one else can stop us from having fun. We're the ones conditioning ourselves and making things uncomfortable. I know we see it all day long in everyone else's lives, so we assume this is normal and that there's no way out. But the truth is, we just have to slow down. We have to pay attention. We have to say our prayers, and we have to set our intentions. We need goals that we're trying to reach. We need ideas that we want to grow into. And in doing so, our subconscious, our spirit, our energy, our guides, our support system, everything starts to work for us. Things are not working against us. And I have had people come to me and say, I just lost my job because of what you told me to do. And I said, great, you didn't like that job anyway. And again, we stop and we look at the blessing in it. What is really going on? What really happened? And this was a big thing that happened in the recession. And within the last few years, a lot of people were keeping their jobs because they thought, there's nothing else. And if I let this go, I won't have what I need. What we found was, if we stopped holding things so tight, we stopped being rigid, and we went back to being fluid and free-flowing energy, that the belief that there was not enough, that there's lack in our lives, that changed, and abundance returned. And so even during these worst years, where it seemed like there was nothing, there were people that were thriving because they believed that what they were hearing could not possibly be true. It cannot possibly be true that the whole world is falling apart at the same time. It just doesn't work that way. So if we focus on what we want in our lives and we open our energy, we draw to us what we need. The scariest thing is being willing to be active in this thought process. We're very habitual, and it's very easy to wake up in the morning and think, I have to go to work. It's very easy to go to bed and feel like I'm uncomfortable in this life. An active step is, again, gratitude, looking at what it is we want, creating a plan for what we want, and then making the effort. Going to bed knowing that something will change. There we go. That's one of the biggest negatives in our energetic process, is the belief that nothing will change. Gosh, when you guys really start to look at this, if you start to pay attention, whenever this feeling of nothing's changed comes up in your life, if you can stop that one habit, that nothing's changed, your world will turn inside out. Somebody comes into the room that you're used to them being vulgar or rude or short-tempered. They walk in the room and their body language looks like this is how they're going to be, and they're still the same. They're still unhappy. They're still going to ruin my life. You're, again, helping them stay in the position that they're in. We hold each other in place with our telepathic communication, with our belief systems, with our reactions to each other, without giving each other freedom and space to grow and change. We are part of the drama. We are holding people in this position. And then, of course, nothing will change. So again, in each moment, it's different. Nothing in the past can predict your future. We can control our existence from moment to moment.
Hey, Christine, this is Amanda. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yay. Regarding interacting with others, holding space for others and not bringing your own judgments, perceptions, or predicting the future. I have had a coworker who for about 2 months now has just been out of the blue turned into giant raging asshole. Just such an ass. And I have not participated in his, he has said some very direct, outrageous things to me that prior to this were not in his nature at all. And I have not at all responded, I've not engaged, and I've just let him be his own angry self. Well, this week, he came in, and after 2 months of giant raging asshole, was a completely different person. And I don't know what has happened, but he has completely changed. And now he's friendly, polite, jovial. It's just been a 180.
Nice.
And it's every time while he was being giant raging asshole, I've done everything I can not to join him in that mental state, to stay positive and focused and understand that everything is coming from love and that this is just somehow a huge misunderstanding that I can possibly not understand at all what is going on with him or why he's acting this way. And it could be a misinterpretation on my part. So no judgment, holding space, let it go, right? And then everything has changed. And it's a complete opposite 180 after it was well over 2 months of this.
Yeah, and that
very
can be the hard part, right? Is being steady through the whole process. That can be difficult and tiring, can't it?
Oh, it was absolutely exhausting. Because, you're just being confronted with all this nonstop, very intense negative emotion. And, not to let it be absorbed by yourself or your energy, and not to try, but to stay focused and to stay positive and not to fall into that vibration and not to try to predict every time I would see him what he was going to do and how he was going to act, and to hold that space for him not to be a giant raging asshole. And then it was like a light switch. And then suddenly, boom, everything is just completely different. It's kind of astounding.
Right. So what you did is you created a safe place where he didn't have one. And so whatever was going on, which, like you said, you didn't know what it was, you didn't engage him and ask him what it was.
Nope.
You don't have to participate that way in people's lives. If you stay who you are, which, like you pointed out too, that's the struggle, is being yourself in every moment. But by doing so, you did not create animosity between the two of you. Because if you had, then later on, when he was feeling better, he would come into work, most people do, which is predicting that, I got to go see Amanda. And it would be that animosity that would come up. Excellent job. And it can take a while. But what I do know, we call it head to mouth and heart to hand. Those are the two primary things that happen. Is something will change in somebody's head, but it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months before you start noticing it in the way they treat you or the way they speak to you. And something can change in their heart. And again, 4 to 6 months before they can actually start changing their outward habits. So things internally change. So it feels to you like he came in and then just boom, it was all better. But it took those 2 months for things to change. It didn't happen overnight. When it's somebody that you're close to in your family, you might be able to get it to go faster. But even then, I've noticed with parents and children that it can still take 4 to 6 months before these changes show up. But it's keeping that consistent, safe space for them throughout the process that makes a big difference.
Well, thank you. because all of the daily activities in the study have really helped.
Nice. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. That's an amazing story.
I don't actually counsel people because I'm not a counselor, but whenever I've helped people in their relationships, that's the one thing that we find is super important, is being consistently you. Because every time you break down and you fear that nothing's going to change, and you allow yourself to fall into one of those traps and overreact or become something that you're not, then you're helping that other person say, see, I was right. I'm not going to get better. I'm not going to change. I'm going to hold my ground. It is nice when you have the tools. You can go into a relationship and say, I see what you're doing. Do you see what you're doing? Let me help you see what you're doing. Let's see if we can get through this in a different way. But if you don't have the tools and you don't have the safe space to do that, being consistently you, no matter how the other person behaves, is the most important thing you can ever offer anyone else. All right, guys, if there's nothing else, we're going to call it a day.
Right on. Well, thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.